Well, hey folks, welcome to my worst reading month ever. Good evening, friends. Although hopefully it's morning when you're watching this, or hopefully it's morning when I post this. It's probably not morning when you're watching it. It's 9 o'clock. It's honestly my bedtime, but I just got back from seeing Wicked and I'm so tired, but I need to film this. I was supposed to film it on Monday, and then I felt awful. And then on Tuesday, wait, today's Tuesday. So I was supposed to film it on Sunday and then Monday. And both days, I couldn't be in front of the camera. I couldn't do it. So we're doing it now, and sleeping is my reward. Worst reading month ever. It was a really, really bad reading month. It was my worst reading month in as long as I can remember. Let's just say that. For as long as I've been tracking my reading, it has been my worst month. I did find some 5 stars. So like I wasn't reading bad books. I just could not finish a book to save my life. And I also read much less books. Like I was reading at a slower pace. And obviously we know that reading is affected by outside circumstances like mental health and, you know, like what's going on in the world. So like, who knows why this happened? It's a mystery, right? I'll remind everybody, when I started this year, fresh as a little daisy, I read 44 books in January. So that's my peak. And apparently this is my low, which is, if we count every book, including DNFs, it's 19 books. But if we just count books I finished, it's 14. Which that, I know that's a lot for some people. But for me, like, that is not a lot. And like, it's all relative, man. Like if you like normally read 20 books and then all of a sudden you're reading 5 to 6, something's wrong with you also. Let's talk about these dang books so I can go to bed. First, let's talk about DNFs. First one I've got is right here. And that is Sharks in the Time of Saviors. You know what? I love this cover. I love it so much. I love everything about it. I like sharks, for those of you who don't know. I'm a little scared of them, but I like them. And I have a soft spot for animals people don't like. So that's just a thing about me. But yeah, I tried it and I got 1 chapter in and I was like, I could keep going, but I don't want to. This is not for me. This is a very literary fiction novel, in case that little New York Times sticker didn't clue you in. So it's just one of those books. It's just not an Ashley book. Okay. So I'm not going to rate it. I'm going to get rid of it. It's gone. Maybe I just want a print of that painting. Was this an original artwork, I wonder? Cover art by Matt Buck. Okay, Matt Buck. I want a print of this cover. If it was like its own thing, then maybe I could get one. Who knows? It's not important. Whatever. It was a DNF. Next up is All's Fair in Love and Treachery. This was an ARC. I read the first book last year when it was published, and I enjoyed myself a lot. And then just for whatever reason, I'm like just not tolerating mediocrity right now. And it was a mediocre reading experience. I was like, I could keep going if I wanted to, but I don't really care about anything that's happening. And also a big part of that is that I don't remember the first book. I read a lot of lady mystery, detective, feminist historical fiction, you know, like, so ladies being detectives in like Victorian times and like other times when they shouldn't be detectives, where ladies weren't supposed to do stuff like that. It's just a thing that I love. And so if you don't do something to stand out a little, I'm gonna get stuff mixed. I'm not gonna remember which heroine went with which book and what was going. I'm not gonna remember. What is Pippin doing? What is Pippin doing? Sometimes when he wants to threaten me, he will go after the Argonath, and then I have to lock him in the bathroom. I DNF'd it. I got like 30% in, and I said, my life is too short. I will continue with the lady historical mystery feminist fictions that stick out in my memory. I don't need to continue with this series. Okay, we're done. Next up, this is a DNF for now, and it's because the library took it away from me, and that is Jade City. I will say I wasn't super into it when the library took it away from me. I think I got 10% in. Was it further? I can't remember. I don't like books about organized crime. And the reason I don't like books usually about organized crime is because those books tend to have themes that I don't care about and that I don't respond to. And they also tend to have a lot of like just men caring about things that I do not give a single about. Stop. Like, it's so stupid. Like, I'm just like, why don't you guys just stop fighting, put on your pajamas, drink some tea or hot chocolate and read a book, okay? Like, sit by the fire and hug somebody. Why are you caring about this? I don't understand. I fundamentally don't understand. But I promised people that I trust that I would finish and see if maybe it works for me in the end. So when the library deigns to give it back to me, I will finish it. And then the last book I DNF'd is The Mountain Crown by Karen Lawacki. This is a book I would not have heard about were it not for the Our Fantasy bingo on Reddit. I actually entered that like halfway through the year, and I was like, I can do it. I can read 24 extra books and make this bingo full. Yeah, right, actually. I never even fill up my Cannonball Read bingo card anymore, which is a bingo challenge I do every year. Let's add another bingo card onto it. I'm not going to finish it. Anyway, one of the categories on that was to pick a book only by looking at the cover, and there's always a hard mode, meaning you also have to know nothing about the book. That's a really tall order, so what I ended up doing was finding lists of books and going really far in the future to try to find a cover that I thought was cool looking and pretty that I did not know anything about. And I finally found it. And sadly, I really did not like it. I DNF'd it pretty early on, like at 19%. It was the writing style. I just got so frustrated. I couldn't even tell if I liked the story. It was too much. I did not like it. Purely a style thing. Literally did not get far enough to judge anything else. But I did hate the style. So sadly, I didn't finish it, and I will not be continuing the series. Oh, by the way, it's a fantasy novella. It's a novella series by an Indigenous author who writes about a fantasy world where the Indigenous people who have like a special relationship with dragons are conquered, just like in our world, and that's what it's about. Anyway, I didn't get far, as you can tell, but it's dragons and Indigenous fiction and fantasy mixed together. So those are my DNFs. Moving on, I didn't have any 1 stars. I didn't have any 2 stars. I did have a 2.5 star, which I rounded up to 3 on Goodreads, just because I do like the author's style, and I have really liked her. Really liked her debut, and that is You're the Problem, It's You by Emma R. Albin. And this is book 2 in the Mischief and Matchmaking duology, which is a queer historical romance that is very knowingly anachronistic in order to provide happy endings and community for queer people in history where they wouldn't have actually gotten it for the most part, because she does it in a way that would not have happened in real life. Like, there's just too much good things happen for these people, okay, for it to be like real history. Oh my God, what a terrible sentence I just said. I really liked the first book, which was about 2 girls who fall in love and whose parents fell in love with each other back in the day, but didn't end up together. And they matchmake the parents so that they don't have to get married, and then they can be together. Okay. And it was really cute and funny, and I really liked it. So I was really excited when the second book was going to be about them matchmaking and finding themselves some lavender marriages so they could be together, and then the 2 gay guys who were their cousins. Wouldn't it be fun if they were together and we were together and then we married, you know? So that's how they ended the first book, and I was like, yes, do it. The problem here is that the author was so focused on making all of her characters live in this beautiful fantasy world of queerness in Victorian times that she has neglected reality, and her characters suffered for it, because the main conflict between these 2 guys is that one of them is extremely traumatized because he did not grow up in a loving environment. He is absolutely not accepted for his homosexuality. He is rightfully terrified. Sorry for those of you who've already read my Goodreads review. I went on a bit of a rant. I was angry. He's rightfully terrified that something really bad, his life could be ruined. Sent them to work camps and they sent them to prison, and their lives were ruined if they were found being gay. I mean, he's rightfully terrified. So the main conflict between these 2 men is that one of them is too scared to commit at all. Like, and it's not just that he's like a little bit scared, he is terrified. And you can't like come at somebody logically when they're that afraid. But that's what all the characters do. And they make this poor guy seem like he thinks that it's his fault for not being brave. And I'm like, my dudes, He's the only sane one out of you. He's the only one living in the real world. Why are you punishing him? He is rightfully afraid of the consequences that you are so blissfully ignoring and punishing him for and telling him he's a coward. And then there's this stupid love interest who I really hated after this, whose name is Bobby also. What a terrible name for a love interest. I'm sorry, I'll never get over it. He is like, his reaction to his lover being terrified, like genuinely petrified, like you could see it on his face to the point where he ran away, was to think, why will no one love me? Am I not good enough to commit to? The author still could have rescued it at that point if the stupid fucker would have apologized and said, I'm sorry, I made that moment about me. You were so scared. I should have supported you. No, did that happen? No. Nope. Conflict was resolved by scared, sane character apologizing for being a coward. Does the other one, Bobby, does he ever apologize? No, he does not. He does not. Whatever, fuck it, 2.5 stars. I'll read more stuff from this author, but she better not up again, or I won't read anymore, because I've rarely gotten that angry at the conflict in a romance novel, but it made me so mad. Moving on. Next 3-star book is Hum. A lot of these are audiobooks, by the way, which is not a coincidence because it's the only way I can finish a book anymore. Just kidding. There's some, obviously, paper copies here. This I was vaguely on my radar, and so I just added it to my TBR. Sometimes I do that, and then I like periodically go through my books that I've added over the last year when it's been a little bit, and then call them back down again and say, no, I'm actually not interested in that at all, because I've seen like reviews since or whatever, and I hadn't seen anyone read it yet. It is a sci-fi, near future sci-fi, where AI is prevalent, and there are these creatures called hums that are prevalent in every part of life. They've taken people's jobs. In fact, the main character was a programmer for the hums. She did such a good job that she like worked herself out of a job. The hums are self-maintaining now. Like, they don't need her anymore. They're done. So she has no job. That was actually really stressful. Reading about her monetary woes with her family just hit way too close to home. And I was really like identifying with that, and it was making me feel very bad. So that was strike number 1. Number 2, this is a slice of life science fiction. When I added it to my radar, somebody or whatever I'd seen it made it seem like it was horror. And it's not. It's not horror, really. It's more of a slice of life science fiction with some minor thriller elements, and then this like creeping sense of dread, but mostly it's about a family. And this woman, she ends up, just in order to make ends meet, enrolls in this study where they are going to make her face unrecognizable to AI, to cameras and facial recognition. And because the society runs on everyone being recognized by these hums, she's gonna have a weird time, which it gets weirder as it goes. They pay her a year's salary, basically, to do this. And as people with little money do a lot, and I know this from experience, when you get money, you're like, I have to spend this now because who knows when you're gonna have it again. And also, like, they've been doing without so many things. Like, this is a world where fruit is a rarity, where animals are rarities. And there's this place, I forget what it was called. It was like a biodiversity, biodome, something like that. I'm forgetting the name. And I have one in my town, like 40 miles away. Anyway, there's this place that rich people can go to experience nature, because that's where the nature is now, and can pick strawberries, and they can live in a cabin and commune with the natural world in like a bubble in the middle of the city. And she splurges on 3 days and 3 nights in this biodome for her family, and it causes problems. And like, it's just, there are some conflicts, but it's slice of life sci-fi. And ultimately, I was like, this is just a 3-star book. I just talked a really long time about a 3-star book, so I'm just gonna move on. And then my second 3-star book was Stars in Your Eyes by Case and Calendar. I'm really upset about this one, actually, because I thought I was going to love it. Like, I did not anticipate, I was like, maybe I'll give it a 4-star, but I'm hoping for a 5. I barely almost gave it a 3. So this is a story about 2 actors who are in a gay rom-com movie. They're filming it, and it's based on a gay romance novel. And one of them is like extremely troubled bad boy, and the other one is like this goody two-shoes angel that everybody loves. Press for their movie is hurting a little, mostly because of the bad boy, and so the producers cook up this scheme for them to date each other for publicity and to help their images. And then, of course, the two fall in love. The problem with this story, and it does have lots of, look up the content warnings, because the troubled boy is troubled for a reason, and a lot of the book is him dealing with that. Matthew, the other guy, trying to help him. My problem with this book is not the story. In fact, in the hands of another writer, I think I could have given this book 5 stars. The story was fine. The events were fine. The plot was fine. It was the writing. There is absolutely no subtext. None at all in this writing. Every single thing the author wants you to take away is on the page. The characters spell it out in their dialogue. There is no hidden depths. The subject itself might be a little deep, but there's nothing there for you to think about. Everything is just there, like fed to you, which normally I don't mind that. I usually don't give those types of books high ratings, but in a romance, when the whole point is to get emotionally engaged, you have to let your reader do some of the emotional work, or they're not going to get attached. They are not going to be there for the highs and lows with your characters. It's just going to be like you're on the outside looking in, and that was what this was like for me. I was like, come on, man, just leave some of this, like, leave some space for me. You're feeding it all to, I don't know how to explain it. That's just how I felt reading the whole thing. I think I'm done with Case and Calendar, because even though I loved Felix Ever After so much, although I don't know if I'd love it now, I'm scared to reread it. I don't think I'm going to reread it ever, because I don't want to not like it. I DNF and 1-starred their last book, which was a young adult fantasy, and I thought it was awful. And this one was just stunningly mediocre. So I think I'm done with Case and Calendar for now. Might try them again far in the future when their style might have shifted or my interests may have shifted. But I think we're done for now. Next, we have, oh, I had this, pretend I was holding it up the whole time. Next, we've got my 3.5 stars. First up is Finley Donovan Rolls the Dice. This is another series that I'm probably done with. If I do continue it, I will not be buying them in the future. I will just be librarying them, and I'm going to go into them with much, much, much lower expectations. After book 1, the quality just went, it was all diminishing returns. And she even admits that she had a hard time with this one, but this one was better than the last one. So if you really didn't like book 3, this is better than book 3. This wraps up the first whole story arc that started in book 1, which is why I wanted to read this. But basically, if you don't know, Finley Donovan is killing it, was the first book. Still highly recommend that one. Maybe just stop after that one if you only just really like it, or I don't know, just do what you want to do. But that book is still really good. And the author hit on this magic of like this woman who is sitting in a Panera with her agent, and she's kind of a failing author, and she's newly divorced, and she's having a really hard time because she's a single mom now, and her kids are driving her crazy, and her career isn't going where she wants it, and she has no support from her ex-husband, and her agent is sitting with her, talking to her about her next book, and the woman at the next table misunderstands what's going on, and she thinks Finley is a hit woman. So she slips her a note, and I don't remember if there's money in the note, but she slips her a note basically saying she would pay her, was it like $50,000? I can't remember, $100,000 to kill her husband. So she gets involved in this plot, and it's just madcap fun with great characters. She hit on lightning with Finley and Vero, her nanny, like together, and it just worked so well. And then she didn't know how to move the story forward. It was just the same things happening again and again to diminishing returns throughout the rest of the books. So I really, that's not what I'm signed up for anymore. And that's basically what cozies are. It's just the same thing over and over. And I don't really like cozy mysteries all that much. But if I am going to read them, I have to know going in that that's what's going to happen, that they're going to be the same. This did not feel like that at first. This promised something else, and it did not deliver. Does that make sense? Anyway, it's 3.5 stars. Okay, next 3.5 star book, Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz. I enjoyed myself with this one. You do have to be in the right mood for it. She writes it herself. Some people have not responded well, hi Miriam, to her writing style, but I think it's fine. I really wasn't expecting very much. It does the job. But I will tell you, there is a lot. She was on One Tree Hill. She's an actress. And then when she first came to Hollywood, she got sucked into this Bible study that was then taken over by this, what does she call it? So it functions like a cult, but it's on a much smaller scale than you're probably thinking about. And she acknowledges that it's probably not everyone's definition of a cult, but she calls it that just because it's easier than calling it a high control group. So this guy comes in and he basically takes over and does the cult thing on all of them and pulls them in and grooms them. And before they know it, bad things are happening and lives are ruined. They're isolated, it's whatever. So she does a good job showing all of that, but it is a lot about her personal feelings about her faith and her religion. So if you don't like reading about religion in detail and like justifications and feelings on that stuff, you're probably not going to like this. But if you can stand that, the underlying story about what she went through is very entertaining. Maybe not very, but it was entertaining. Ow! I had a good time. 3.5 stars. Apparently the audio is really good, so maybe I made a mistake and should have done the audio, but book of the month, I don't do audio for them. Okay, now we're to 4 stars. So next book, just going to talk very briefly about this because I feel like it's been all over booktube, and that's Slewfoot by Brum. So I've owned this for several years now, and I just have never gotten around to it. And it could not have been more perfectly timed. I read it the week after the election, and it was pretty cathartic watching Abatha do her thing. So this takes place in 1666, 1667 in Sutton Village. Definitely Puritans, those fuckers. It's this girl's experience after her husband is killed, dealing with the Puritan patriarchy and all of that nonsense. And meanwhile, she accidentally wakes up this beast in the forest. Is he a demon? Is he a god? Is he both? And his name is Slewfoot. And they begin to have a beneficial relationship with each other, and then things go from there. Anyway, like I said, this was very cathartic. If you just want to watch a woman lean into her rage, check this one out. And then this was a book club read. This is actually the first book I finished this month, and that was The Art Thief by Michael Finkel. This is about a French dude who, with his girlfriend, committed the most art heists in history, most likely. And it's all about how he started, why he was doing it, and then how his behavior simultaneously escalated and de-escalated, like he was deteriorating mentally, and then how he was caught and what happened to him. It was really fascinating. I can't say you're gonna like very many people in this book, but I think that you will find it interesting. Also, it will make you very mad. What happened at the end of this made me so angry, but it was a good time, so 4 stars. Next up was an ARC, and that is Deadly Animals by Marie Tierney. This book I almost DNF'd, but I'm really glad I stuck it out for just a little bit longer because it was feeling sort of generic to me. But then it found its voice, and I ended up having a good time, and it got kind of weird. I wish it had gone weirder, actually, but that's just me. So this is a book about, is she 13 or 14? I think she's 13. Well, I think she's 13 when the book starts because it takes place over the course of a year. She is a very unusual girl. Didn't know till the end of the audiobook when there's an interview with the author. She's based on the author's own childhood. The author had a body farm, just like the main character has a body farm. And by body farm, I mean she takes roadkill from the road and then places it where she can control the circumstances and then watches what happens in the process of decay, which is what body farms are these days, and she was a little ahead of the curve. Anyway, in the process of checking her body farms one night, she finds the body of a classmate who's been missing for weeks, and he's dead. And she calls the police, disguising her voice. Events go from there. She somehow, even though she doesn't want to be involved, becomes involved in the investigation because the detective who is investigating the murder is just got this feeling about her, and they develop sort of a cute little relationship. But what the crime ends up being and the way that she thinks about it was really what sold this for me. So if you can like hold out until like 15-20% of the book, I think that you will like it too. So if you're going to pick it up, give it a chance, because it doesn't become clear what's going on for a little bit. Anyway, this isn't like gonna be a favorite, but I am glad I read it, and I am certainly going to keep checking out this author's books. In fact, I think she's working on a sequel to this one, which I will read. So 4 stars. And then my last 4-star book was, oh my God, there's so many to talk about. My last 4-star book was The Last Hour Between Worlds. I did this on audio. Excellent audiobook. It's Moira Quirk. She does an amazing job as always. So if you're interested in it, I would recommend the audio if you like audio. This was a book that I'm actually regretting because it was November's Illumicrate book and I skipped it for funds. Should look into becoming a rep for some of these boxes because they're really draining me dry. But anyway, I skipped it thinking, oh, if you like it, you can always buy it later. And sure enough, I really liked it. And the edition is super cool. So I'm gonna watch out for a reasonably priced secondhand edition and hopefully get one soon-ish. But anyway, this is a speculative book, mostly fantasy. Feels a little bit like sci-fi though because of the time travel elements. And when I say time travel, it's really a time loop. The main character, whose name I've temporarily forgotten, it was not a common name. She's the mother of a newborn, and she's on the last 2 weeks of her maternity leave, but she works for this agency that, oh my God, now I have to explain this to you guys. She works for this agency that keeps safe the borders between reality, or the prime world, and all the other worlds underneath, which, what did they call them? I don't remember. They call them something. It was a cool name. It wasn't a dumb name. That's all I remember. And this is a great wrap up. Aren't you guys so glad you clicked on this video? It's not a multiverse and it's not another world. It's basically like if you go down a level, it's the world, but there are echoes of everything that's going on above. And the more levels you go down, the more the echoes do not resemble what's actually going on up, and the more dangerous they are and desperate. The main character is what we call a hound, and it is her job to go into this underworld that I really wish I would have remembered the name about, and retrieve people who've accidentally become lost there one way or another. It's really common for people with really strong, look at him, really strong imaginations, especially children, to sometimes just lose track of reality and slip down a level and then get lost, and it's her job to go find them and bring them back. And actually, though, what's really cool is I was expecting a time travel, time loop story, but what this actually feels like is a story about mischievous, dangerous fairies. So if you've read a book where a character goes into fairyland and it's the dangerous fairyland, think the fairies in Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, that kind of fairy, not sexy fairies with wings and abs and stuff. Sarah J. Maas fairies, we're not talking like that fae. We're talking folklore, dangerous fae. That's what it felt like, even though they weren't fae, they were just reflections of our world. They go to this New Year's Eve party, and she sees her rival there, whose name is Rika Nunset. I remember that because it's a hell of a name. And of course there's, some history. There's some history there. This is a sapphic book. They get wrapped up in this time loop together because the echoes, somebody's causing havoc. Okay, I can't say any more than that. I had a really good time listening to this book. I was so pleasantly surprised. Sometimes I go into Illumicrate books but you guys have disappointed me. You think this book is good, and it wasn't. So sometimes I go in oh, is this gonna be one of those books? And then it wasn't. It was good. I highly recommend it. I'm definitely reading book 2. It's gonna be a trilogy. I would reread that book. So I do want to get a copy. 4 stars. Okay, then I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I can't talk about every essay, but this is a book called I Like to Watch by Emily Nussbaum, and she actually got the Pulitzer Prize for criticism a couple years back, and this book makes it clear why. I do not always agree with her. She had some wildly, outrageously terrible takes, mostly to do with Game of Thrones, which there was no essay on Game of Thrones in this book, and I'm pretty sure she did that on purpose. And I also disagree with her take on Lost a lot. She had some smart things to say critically that I think most people when they're criticizing Lost aren't smart enough to bring up, but I also think she was wrong about a lot of it. Anyway, she is very smart, clearly. She loves television. She's not a snob. I mean, the book opens with her saying that she fell in love with television because of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so you know she's not a genre snob. But it's basically essays and reviews and pieces that she wrote over the course of her career. There's one new essay, which is the longest one in the book, which is she was trying to choose what new essay to write, and then she was writing this when Me Too happened. So she ended up writing an essay about dealing with the art of problematic men, and it was the most nuanced, satisfying look at that subject that I've ever read or seen. If you're interested in that, check this book out. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, even though she made me mad a couple times, because she's just clearly really good at what she does, and I couldn't deny it. Good Lord, I'm taking a break. Hold on. Somebody come snuggle me! Thank you. Come here. Come here. I don't want snuggles, I want food. Okay, break's over. 5 stars. I had 4 of them. 4 or 5 stars. Let's talk about the one I don't have a physical copy of yet, and that is The Butcher's Masquerade by Matt Dinneman. Yes, I have finally given 5 stars to a Dungeon Crawl Carl book. I am 100% positive when I go back that at least book 3, probably, if not more of them, are going to get 5 stars when I reread. We're not there yet. But I don't have much to say beyond what I've already said about Dungeon Crawler Carl in the past. These books, the further they go on, I can't say anything about them. So all you gotta know is aliens come, destroyed Earth, survivors went into a dungeon they made underground, and now they're forcing the remainder of humanity to play a Dungeons and Dragons style role-playing game, but for real, with their bodies. And it is funny, it's satirical, it's emotional. There's a talking cat who's the best character. Well, she and Carl are tied, actually. But she's the best character. I will be reading the next book. I'm going to see how long I can hold out, because if I read it in December, I'm not going to have another new one until February. So I have to be brave. Now let's quickly go through these books. First up is a reread, and that is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the second book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I reread the first book over the summer, and I want to continue my read and finish it up before the end of the year. And this was a great time. It was even better than the first time. And I really am excited to get to book 3, because I feel like that one, in hindsight, is probably the best one. But next up, well, I've got these in order of liking them, but I want to talk about the new one last. So we're going to talk about how I finally finished my Game of Thrones reread. This was a process. Can I just tell you? I spent a lot of time with this book since September 1st. Don't remember what day I finished it this month, but I finally, this is like the only thing I wanted to read after the election. Also a weird sentence that I've just said. I really appreciated this reread in a way that I don't think that I appreciated it the first 2 times, when I was just like uncritically along for the ride. And this time I was like thinking, and I could really see how good of a writer George R.R. Martin is. Even if we never get books 6 and 7, we're still lucky to have this, and I will defend that statement. I'm not going to reread book 2 though until next year, so we're good. If it's going to take me 3 months, I'm going to space them out. And then the last book was my only, well, no, it wasn't my only new 5-star, because Butcher's Masquerade. But this was my only physical new 5-star read, and I really wanted to love this, and I was so happy when I did, and that is Sorcery and Small Magics by Micah Ducey. This is a secondary world fantasy about this world where, do I have enough energy to talk about this right now? I mean, the magic is real. It's such a good summary. It's about a magic school, and these 2 guys, guy number 1, guy number 2, enemies. And they are forced to become partners and in a class, and one of them accidentally curses the other, a la Ella Enchanted. We get to see them go on an adventure to try to undo that. And in the process, which is what makes this a 5-star book, well, 2 things made this a 5-star. First was that if you're gonna do a tropey premise like this, you have to be willing to do the work to emotionally plot out not only what your characters are doing in their own heads, and like they both have their own arcs that are not forced at all, and they're really interesting, but also like their relationship to each other. So like there's no forced proximity. It all feels very natural, and it is a slow burn romance. This is going to be a romance split across 3 books. So they have not even, wait, did they kiss? I can't remember. They're not together at the end of this book. That is how slow this is. Sorry, that was a spoiler. But I want you to be prepared, okay? This isn't like sexy fairy fantasy with dicks, okay? Although both of them have dicks. But that's besides the point. We don't see the dicks. This is the worst review ever. I'm so sorry. Now the second thing, you guys are ruining my review. Second thing that makes this a 5-star was the world building. The world building in this was so cool, and I think I was going to give it a 4.5 up until this one moment in the climax where literally everything came together in this moment that I've never seen anything like it in another book. And if you can do that and give me those feelings, I'm going to give your book 5 stars. Plus, I love a slow burn. I love a slow burn romance. Yeah, 5 stars, and I definitely want this on my wall somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do that. You can do that with the shark, and they can be next to each other. Just kidding. They wouldn't look good together. They would clash. And I'm done! Now that I've talked it all out, I mean, it doesn't sound like it was my worst reading month ever. It's just when I looked at my spreadsheet and I was like, really, that's it? That's it? That's all we had? Also, this is my average for this month in terms of ratings. And this is my average over the full year. So only you will be able to know, and future editing Ashley, if I really had a bad month or I just had a bad month. What's the difference? Who cares? I'm gonna go to bed now. If you've made it to the end of this very long video, even though I didn't have that many books to talk about, thank you so much. If you liked the video, please don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe if you want to. It's the best way to help me. And if you don't have anything to say about any of these books and you still want to leave me some love and help me with the algorithm, please leave me an emoji down below. Violin for Sorcery and Small Magics, or a wolf for Game of Thrones. And I'll see you in the next one. Okay, love you, bye.